So given the events that we've seen now with Osama bin Laden's death, I just wonder if you think that this takes the issue off the table in terms of national security and makes it more difficult for the Republican field to attack the president just on this particular issue.
Well, I think by Election Day in 2012, this will be a distant memory, a good one. You know, it's great for America that Osama bin Laden has been eliminated, but I think, you know, the impact on politics long term is minimal. You know, the greatest threat to our nation is really our fiscal challenges, I think even more so than radical Islam or terrorists. So this is a momentary distraction, a good one, again. It's a great thing, but I don't think it's going to have lasting impact.
Does that mean we should expect to hear zero from whoever it is that the Republicans end up settling on in terms of national security, or that is it going to be more difficult to criticize the president on, I don't know, on Libya, for example, on Afghanistan, or by that time in 6 months or whatever it is, the limit, you could say, okay, well, what did take the country so long to get to this point?
Well, as you point out, it's going to be several months before there is a voice of the opposition. You know, all of these Republican candidates are going to be running against each other for the next several months. So they won't focus on President Obama until early next year at the earliest. I think the world will continue to change. I think that the topics of discussion will continue to change in the detail, but certainly national security and the size of government, our debt and deficit, are going to be the overriding factors. And so killing Osama bin Laden is a symbolic, I think, measure. I don't know that he was driving the day-to-day threats that challenge us every day. So again, I think it's a very good thing, but I just don't think in the big picture that it's going to change the discussion or the strategy or tactics of any candidates that ultimately run in 2012.
You know, in the wake of the shooting of Gabby Giffords, there was all this talk about how it was time to ratchet down the rhetoric, it was time to not be so personal and partisan in attacks, and now we're hearing some of that coming out again, that perhaps it'll change the tone of even the debate over things that have nothing to do with national security, like, for example, the debt ceiling or the budget. Is that something that you expect to be seeing as this fight is rejoined with Congress back in Washington this week?
You know, some things just never change. I don't think that the tone of politics is really going to change. I think that people are passionate, people are partisan, and partisanship is a good thing because it's a battle of ideas, and that's what elections are about. So I think we will have these sometimes good, sometimes bad occurrences that will influence the short-term language that people use, but I don't think in the big picture that things have changed at all. I think the world has changed in the sense of the economy and politics in general. Certainly the last 3 elections have been historic elections, and I think that we continue to see people get involved in their government, try to figure out how they can participate in good government. We see the Tea Parties at town hall meetings, and that's all good. But I don't think that politics, you know, you can go back to the election of 1800, and there was a lot of nasty language back then, and I don't think anything's changed between now and then other than we have TVs on all day, every day, and the news cycle is very short, and people pay attention. But I don't think politics really changes.
Yeah, and no one's dueling at dawn either. But other than that, it's verbal and not with actual bullets and guns. Other than that, not too much.
Yeah.
You know,
That's right.
The thing is, though, does it not bring a more, I don't know, a sobering moment? Because one of the reasons, of course, we wanted to talk to you was because of the rise, however brief it might be, of Donald Trump, at least in everybody's consciousness. And when you really step back and look at this and say, oh yeah, the president, he's the commander-in-chief, national defense is very serious, doesn't it not bring a new reality, if you will, to vetting candidates for president?
I think that's a good point. You know, when Donald Trump was running around the country talking about the president's birth certificate and about 25% tariffs on the Chinese and things, you know, the president can't say whoever the president is, what they are doing on a daily basis, and they're doing serious business. There's no question. And so I think that this occurrence does put things in perspective and does make people ask, who do you want as your president? Somebody that can engage in inflammatory political rhetoric or somebody that's up to the job? And so, you know, Donald Trump has maybe had his 15 minutes. We engaged with Donald Trump over the last couple of weeks because we thought it's important for people to understand what he believes and where he is on policy, because this is what matters. The show, the showmanship, it's important to look behind the curtain and see what this person believes that wants to run our country and be the most powerful person in the world. And so I think that this occurrence with Osama bin Laden clearly puts things in perspective, and hopefully everyone will take their thoughts more seriously when they answer questions on who they support. And what we do at the Club for Growth is try to educate people on what people believe on economic issues so they can make informed and good decisions.
Well, right, which explains, because of the economic issues, explains why you called him a liberal in various different press releases, and you noted that he has a history of various different positions. For example, at one point he supported universal health care, which is not exactly the most conservative of policy ideals. But then he shot back with suggesting that actually the Club for Growth it has a favorite already, which would be Tim Pawlenty, because you share a consultant. Is that true?
We have no horse in this race. I wish we did, actually. I wish that we were very excited about a candidate that has been a long-term champion of economic freedom. We're still open-minded. We do white papers that are intended to be really objective studies of the economic background and records of each of the candidates. We will release one on Tim Pawlenty. We will release one on Mitt Romney and whoever else gets in the race. But right now, we don't have anybody that's a favorite. We do have, we happen to have a consultant that we've used in the past and continue to use that is also working with Tim Pawlenty, but that has no influence or bearing on our view of this race or our comments on Donald Trump.
I mean, we've seen the Club for Growth in New York. We've seen the Club for Growth be very instrumental, particularly in New York 23, in the congressional race up there. It was a special election. I mean, do you expect that the Club for Growth will indeed pick a favorite at some point? Is it even possible that you'd stay out?
Of the presidential race?
Of the presidential, yeah.
We did in 2008. We did not get involved there, other than we engaged with Mike Huckabee in some of the early primaries to make sure people understood what his record was on economic issues. So we didn't endorse anybody, we didn't support anybody, but we would rather be for somebody. And again, we're being open-minded, and maybe someone will emerge and inspire us. But at this point, we're just trying to survey the field like everybody else. I don't even know if we have one announced candidate, so we're getting off to a late start. But we think it's important that we're informed, our members are informed, and we share our white papers with anybody that wants to read them. We put them on our website, and we think it's a good guide as to the long-term history of each of the candidates on their economic views, because we really do think pro-growth economic policy is the most important issue right now, because we have to get the economy going, we have to create jobs, and we have to have an administration that frankly understands how you create jobs, wealth, and economic growth, because we're not convinced the current administration understands those things.
Do you, if you wouldn't mind another New York-centric question, do you imagine that the Club for Growth will get involved in New York 26, which is the other special election that we've got right now, less than a month away?
Right, we've looked at that race, and we don't feel compelled to get involved in every race. We only get involved if we think there's a constructive role we can play. And so we have decided to not get involved in that race, and so we're certainly interested in the outcome, but we're not asking our members to support any candidate or get engaged in that race.
Well, just in parting, does that mean that you did not think, for example, the Republican or even Jack Davis, Republican would be Jane Corwin, Jack Davis, the Independent, were sufficiently conservative in their economic thinking to get involved, or you just took a pass because it wasn't worth it?
Well, there has to be a lot of factors in place for us to get involved in a race. We want to make sure that we only ask our members to invest in races if we can be a determining factor for a true champion of pro-growth policies and economic freedom. And we're not, when we don't get involved, it's not necessarily that the candidates are bad. That we just don't think that all the factors are in place where we are asking our members to make a wise investment that is quite frankly, a determining factor in the outcome of a race. We don't always support we almost never support the foregone conclusion, because if we think somebody's going to win with or without our help, we don't get involved, even if we love the candidate. And so all the factors aren't in place in this special election, so we've decided not to get involved.
Interesting. Well, I want to thank you very much Chris Ciccolo, for joining us. It's good to see you.
Sure. Thank you for having me on.